Chosen one, why do you wake up at 3 a.m. with tears on your pillow, whispering to an empty room, "God, did you forget about me?" Why does your heart ache with a longing so deep you can't even name it? Why, after decades of faithfulness, do you feel more invisible now than ever before? Listen to me, chosen one. What if I told you that every sleepless night, every moment you felt forgotten, every tear you've cried in secret, has been heaven taking inventory? What if your pain wasn't punishment, but preparation? It's the 11th of August and 12th, 2 days that will not pass like any other days in your life. 2 days that heaven already circled on its eternal calendar, long before your first breath. Right now, in the courts of glory, there's a divine hearing taking place, and your name is being spoken with thunder. You've buried people you love, haven't you? You've watched seasons close like chapters you'll never read again. Your body reminds you daily that time is precious. And maybe, just maybe, deep inside that sacred chamber of your heart, you've whispered the question that haunts every senior saint. Is my story winding down, or is there more? Dear one, I need you to lean in close, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered about your age, your relevance, your future. There is something coming in these 2 days, the 11th of August and 12th, that will seal your destiny forever. And if you walk through them with the right heart, nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever be the same. Before we go deeper into this sacred mystery together, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart. Now, before we unveil what heaven has decreed over these 2 days, I need you to do something. Don't just watch this passively. Participate in your own breakthrough. Speak this out loud. Type it in the comments if you can. I'm ready to rise. Say it like you mean it. Say it like your destiny depends on it. Because heaven is listening. Angels are leaning in. And what happens next will determine whether you spend your remaining years questioning your purpose or walking in the fullness of why you were born. These aren't just dates on a calendar, beloved. The 11th of August and 12th are divine appointments. And your attendance isn't optional, it's prophetic. Are you ready to discover why? How many decades have you been carrying the same prayer in your heart? How many sleepless nights have you whispered the same desperate plea to heaven, wondering if your words are even reaching God's ears? How long have you been waiting for an answer that feels like it's never coming, while watching others receive what you've been begging for? Dear chosen one, I see you there in that sacred space between hope and heartbreak. You've been faithful for 70, 80, maybe 90 years. You've tithed when your bank account was crying. You've served when your body was screaming. You've believed when your circumstances were laughing at your faith. And yet here you are, still waiting, still wondering if God remembers your address. Let me tell you about a man named Moses. Picture him at 80 years old, 80, tending sheep in the wilderness of Midian. For 40 years, he'd been exiled from everything he thought was his destiny. 40 years of watching the sun rise and set on the same barren landscape. 40 years of wondering if the passion that once burned in his heart to deliver his people had been nothing more than youthful arrogance. His hands were weathered, his back was bent, and if he was honest with himself, he'd probably given up on the idea that God had any use for an old shepherd with a speech impediment. But what Moses didn't know was that every single day in that wilderness wasn't wasted time, it was sacred preparation. Every sheep he led to water was training him to lead a nation. Every lonely night under the stars was teaching him to depend on God's voice alone. Every moment he felt forgotten was actually God hiding him until the appointed time. Then consider Anna the prophetess, 84 years old when she finally saw the Messiah with her own eyes. 84 years of waiting in the temple, praying, fasting, believing for the consolation of Israel. Day after day, year after year, watching young mothers bring their babies for dedication, hoping, praying that one of them would be the one. Her knees were probably arthritic from kneeling. Her voice was probably hoarse from praying. Her heart was probably weary from hoping. But she stayed. She waited. She believed. Because Anna understood something that most people never learn. The delay doesn't mean denial. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? You've prayed for your prodigal children to come home, some of you, for 20, 30, 40 years. You've prayed for healing that seems to take forever. You've prayed for financial breakthrough while bills kept piling up like storm clouds. You've prayed for purpose, for meaning, for one more chance to matter in this world while feeling more invisible with each passing year. And the enemy has been whispering the same lie in your ear for decades. God has forgotten you. Your prayers aren't working. Your best days are behind you. You missed your window. You're too old now. It's too late. But what if everything you've believed about delay is a lie? What if every unanswered prayer wasn't God ignoring you, but God preparing something so magnificent that if it had come any earlier, it would have destroyed you? What if the waiting wasn't punishment but protection? What if the silence wasn't absence but the sound of heaven working behind the scenes on your behalf? Think about this. When a storm is brewing, what happens first? The clouds gather, slowly, quietly, building pressure, building power. And to those watching from below, it looks like nothing is happening. Day after day, they see the same grey sky. They feel the same heavy air. They wonder if the rain will ever come. But meteorologists know something the casual observer doesn't. All that waiting, all that building, all that pressure is creating the perfect conditions for a downpour that will break the drought and refresh the earth. Dear one, you've been living under gathering storm clouds for decades. The pressure you felt wasn't God's displeasure, it was divine preparation. Every tear you've cried has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered has been recorded in eternal archives. Every moment of faithfulness in the dark has been adding to the atmospheric pressure of your breakthrough. Abraham waited 25 years for Isaac. 25 years. Can you imagine? Every month Sarah's cycle reminded them that the promise was still unfulfilled. Every birthday that passed whispered, "You're getting older. You're running out of time." But when Isaac finally arrived, he wasn't just a baby, he was the beginning of a nation that would bless every family on earth. Joseph spent 13 years between his dream and his destiny. 13 years of slavery, false accusations, and forgotten promises. But those 13 years weren't lost time, they were investment years. They were building the character, the wisdom, and the dependence on God that Joseph would need to save the known world from famine. Your delay hasn't been denial, beloved. It's been development. God has been using every season of waiting to prepare you for what you couldn't have handled earlier. The character you've built, the faith you've developed, the depth you've gained, none of that could have been rushed. It had to be refined over time, like gold in the furnace. But here's what's about to change everything you thought you knew about waiting. You've been carrying a question in your heart for months, maybe years. You wake up each morning wondering if this is all there is. You look in the mirror and see someone the world has labeled senior, someone society whispers should be winding down. But something deep in your spirit refuses to accept that lie. What if I told you that right now, this very moment, there's a divine roll call happening in the throne room of heaven? What if angels are standing with golden scrolls, calling out names of those chosen for end-time assignments? What if your name, yes, your name, just echoed through the corridors of eternity? Listen to me. Chosen one. The 11th of August and 12th aren't random dates, they're prophetic windows. Moments when heaven reaches down and touches earth with such precision that destinies shift in milliseconds. These are the days when God seals what he's been preparing in secret. You think you've been forgotten because your phone doesn't ring as much anymore. You think you're irrelevant because your children are too busy for long conversations. You think your season has passed because your body moves slower than it used to. But heaven operates on a different timeline than earth. Think about Joseph. 17 years old when he received his dream, 30 years old when he finally stepped into it. 13 years. 13 years of betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and prison walls. Do you think Joseph understood why his own brothers threw him in that pit? Do you think he knew why Potiphar's wife could destroy his reputation with a lie? Do you think he comprehended why the cupbearer forgot about him for 2 whole years? Joseph didn't know that every injustice was positioning, every betrayal was preparation, every delay was divine strategy. Because when Pharaoh finally called for him, Joseph didn't just get a job, he became second in command of the most powerful nation on earth. In one day, everything changed. But here's what breaks my heart about your story. You've been living like Joseph in the prison, not Joseph in the palace. You've been identifying with the pit, not the promotion. You've been rehearsing the betrayal, not believing for the breakthrough. God whispered to my spirit 3 nights ago, and what he told me about the 11th of August and 12th will shake you to your core. He said, the roll call has begun. The ones who have waited the longest are being called first. Do you understand what that means? While you've been feeling forgotten, heaven has been taking attendance. While you've been questioning your worth, angels have been preparing your assignment. While you've been wondering if your time has passed, God has been saving the best wine for last. Right now, in the courts of glory, there's a conversation happening about you, not about your age, not about your mistakes, not about what you didn't accomplish, about your assignment, about your anointing, about the oil that's been refined through decades of pressure. The enemy has been whispering lies. You're too old. You missed your window. God's moved on to younger vessels. But that's not what the scroll says. That's not what's written in the book of life. That's not what the angels are declaring as they call out names for end-time assignments. The 11th of August, the day heaven finalizes what earth has been waiting for. The 12th of August, the day the seal is set, and what was promised becomes permanent. These aren't just dates. They're divine appointments that have been circled on heaven's calendar since before time began. You want to know why you've survived everything you've survived? Why that heart attack didn't take you out? Why that depression didn't destroy you? Why that betrayal didn't break you? Because your name was on a list of the chosen, a list of the remnant, a list of those who would carry fire in their final years. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. Abraham was 99 when God gave him Isaac. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to promise. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus. Your birth certificate isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. These prophetic windows don't stay open forever. Divine appointments can be missed. Joseph could have stayed bitter in that prison. Moses could have made excuses at the burning bush. Sarah could have laughed in unbelief instead of faith. I need you to understand something that will change everything. The reason you felt so restless lately, so dissatisfied with ordinary conversation, so hungry for something deeper that's not discontent, that's divine stirring. That's your spirit, recognizing that these 2 days are approaching. The angels assigned to your breakthrough have been watching. They've seen you worship through the pain. They've witnessed you praise in the storm. They've recorded every tear, every prayer, every moment you chose faith over fear. And now they're saying, this one is ready. This one has been tested. This one can handle what we're about to release. Your name isn't just on heaven's list, it's been highlighted, underlined, and marked with urgent priority. Because what God is about to do through the senior saints in these final days will be so supernatural, so undeniable, that even skeptics will have to acknowledge that the Ancient of Days still moves through aged vessels. But you have to believe it. You have to receive it. You have to declare it. Right now, I need you to stand up wherever you are. Place your hand on your heart and say these words with everything in you. My name is on heaven's list. Say it like you believe it. Say it like your destiny depends on it. Because it does. The question that will determine everything is this. When your name is called on the 11th of August and 12th, will you answer with faith or fear? Will you step into your appointment or shrink back into obscurity? Because, chosen one, what happens next will either seal your destiny in glory or leave you wondering what could have been. Why do you think the last few months have been so brutal? Why does it feel like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong? Your arthritis is worse than it's ever been. Your children barely call. The doctor's visits are multiplying faster than your social security checks can cover them. You look in the mirror and see a stranger, tired, worn down, forgotten by a world that worships youth. But let me tell you something that will stop you in your tracks. What if I told you that every single attack, every health scare, every lonely night, every financial pressure, what if none of it was random? What if it was all orchestrated warfare designed to break you before the 11th of August and 12th? The enemy knows something about these dates that you're just beginning to understand. He's been throwing everything he's got at you because he's terrified of what you're about to become. Think about it. Why would hell waste its ammunition on someone insignificant? Why would darkness mobilize against someone ordinary? You've been under attack because you're about to break through. Look at David. This wasn't some shepherd boy who accidentally stumbled into greatness. This was a man marked by God, anointed by Samuel, carrying the oil of kingship in his veins. But what happened next? Years in caves, years running from King Saul, years of wondering if God had made a mistake. 1 Samuel tells us, David spent 7 years hiding in the wilderness while wearing the crown of a king. 7 years. Can you imagine? Knowing you're called to rule but living like a refugee. Knowing you're anointed but feeling abandoned. David could have looked at those cave walls and said, maybe I heard wrong. Maybe I'm not meant for this. But here's what David understood, that you need to grasp right now: the cave wasn't his punishment. It was his preparation. Every night he spent in darkness was building the character he'd need to handle the light. Every tear he cried in isolation was storing up the compassion he'd need to lead a nation. Your cave season is almost over, chosen one. But first, you had to be tested. Sarah knew this pain too. 90 years old, decades past menopause, watching younger women raise the children she'd prayed for her entire life. Can you feel her heartbreak? Can you imagine the shame she carried in a culture that measured a woman's worth by her fertility? Genesis tells us she laughed when God promised her a son, not with joy, but with the bitter laughter of someone who'd given up hope. But God wasn't laughing. He was positioning her for the impossible. Because when Isaac finally came, Sarah didn't just birth a baby, she birthed a nation. Her decades of waiting weren't wasted time. They were preparation time. Every year of emptiness was building the faith she'd need to believe for the miraculous. You think your waiting has been too long? Sarah waited 90 years, and when her moment came, it shook the ancient world. Then there's Caleb. 85 years old when he stood before Joshua and declared, "Give me this mountain." Numbers 14 tells us he was one of only 2 spies who believed God could deliver the promised land. But did he get to enter immediately? He wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, watching an entire generation die in unbelief. 40 years of waiting, 40 years of watching others give up, 40 years of holding on to a promise when everyone around him called him a fool. But when the time came at 85, Caleb didn't ask for a rocking chair. He didn't request a quiet retirement. He demanded the hardest territory, the giant stronghold, the mountain everyone else feared. Why? Because 40 years of testing had proven something to him. If God said it, it would happen. His age wasn't his limitation, it was his qualification. Now let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your heart. How many times in the last year have you felt like giving up? How many nights have you laid in bed wondering if your best days are behind you? How many times have you looked at your reflection and whispered, "I'm too old, too tired, too forgotten. Every single one of those moments was a test. Every health scare that made you question your future, every financial pressure that made you doubt God's provision, every moment of loneliness that made you feel invisible, the enemy was studying your response. He was watching to see if you'd quit before the 11th of August and 12th. But you didn't quit, did you? You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still believing. And that, dear one, is why hell is shaking. Because when you walk through the fire and refuse to burn, when you face the giants and refuse to retreat, when you endure the testing and refuse to break, you don't just survive. You emerge carrying something. You come out with authority that can't be taught, only earned. You rise with a testimony that can't be fabricated, only forged in the furnace of real pain. The psalmist knew this secret when he wrote in Psalm 66:12, "We went through fire and water, but you brought us to a place of abundance." Notice he didn't say God took them around the fire. He said through it, because abundance, real abundance, is always on the other side of endurance. Your testing wasn't random, it was required. Every night you cried out to God and heard silence. Every prayer that seemed to bounce off the ceiling. Every moment you felt forgotten, it was all building something inside you that this generation desperately needs. The world needs someone who's been tested and proven. They need someone who's walked through hell and came out praising God. They need someone whose faith isn't theoretical but testimonial. But here's the urgency burning in my spirit right now. The 11th of August and 12th are almost here. The testing phase is ending. The promotion phase is beginning. And everything you've endured, every tear, every struggle, every moment of doubt, it's all about to make sense. Because what's coming isn't just your breakthrough, it's your vindication. Stop everything you're doing right now. Put down that cup of coffee. Turn off that television. Because what I'm about to tell you about the 11th of August will either transform your understanding of divine timing, or you'll miss the greatest spiritual breakthrough of your lifetime. The 11th of August is not just another Thursday. It's the day heaven unlocks the vault. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been walking past a door. A massive door with your name carved into its frame. You've knocked on it during desperate nights. You've pressed your ear against it during lonely afternoons. You've even kicked it during moments of rage, screaming, "Why won't you answer me?" But that door has remained sealed. Until now. The 11th of August is the day the lock clicks open. Not because you finally figured out the combination, not because you earned the right to enter, but because the master builder of the universe looks at his watch and declares, "It's time." You want to know what's behind that door? Your original blueprint. The divine design that was drawn before the foundation of the world. The plans that were hidden while you were being hammered by life, shaped by suffering, refined by rejection. Every tear was a chisel stroke. Every betrayal was careful craftsmanship. Every moment you felt forgotten was God's hand steadying the work. Jeremiah 29:11 declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future." But here's what most people miss. Those plans weren't written after you were born. They were written before time began. And the 11th of August is when you finally get to see the blueprints. Think about the greatest cathedral in the world. Did it appear overnight? No. For decades, architects worked in secret chambers, drawing, erasing, perfecting every detail. The laborers who laid the foundation never saw the finished spire. The workers who carved the stones never witnessed the completed sanctuary. But the master architect knew. He held the vision. He protected the plans. That's your life, chosen one. You've been a laborer working on a masterpiece you couldn't see. But the 11th of August is the day you step back and see what God has been building through your pain. But here's what terrifies me. Here's what keeps me awake at night. There are people who will sleep through the 11th of August. People who will treat it like any other day. People who will let the greatest unlocking of their lifetime pass by because they're too busy complaining about their circumstances to notice heaven opening its vault. Don't be one of them. Moses was 80 when God showed him the burning bush. 80. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah. But here's a modern testimony that will shatter your excuses. Grandma Moses didn't pick up a paintbrush until she was 78 years old. 78. Arthritis in her hands, cataracts clouding her vision, but something inside her whispered, "It's time." She painted over 1,500 masterpieces and became one of America's most celebrated artists. Why? Because she understood that God's timing isn't our timing. Colonel Sanders was 65, broke, living on Social Security when he decided to franchise his chicken recipe. 65. His wife told him he was too old. His friends said he was crazy. But he knocked on 1,009 doors before one restaurant owner said yes. Today, KFC serves millions of meals around the world. Why? Because he refused to believe that his age was his expiration date. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Every wrinkle is a line of wisdom. Every gray hair is a crown of glory. Every scar is evidence that you survived what should have killed you. But the 11th of August demands a response. It's not a passive experience, it's an active encounter. Heaven is opening the vault, but you must walk through the door. God is revealing the blueprints, but you must pick up the tools. Right now, I need you to do something. If you're physically able, I want you to stand up. Stand up right where you are. If you can't stand, lift your hand. Lift it high. This isn't religious theater. This is spiritual activation. You're declaring to heaven that you're ready to receive what the 11th of August is about to release. Feel that energy coursing through your body. That's not adrenaline. That's anticipation. That's your spirit, recognizing that the season of waiting is over and the season of walking in your destiny has begun. But here's the question that will determine whether the 11th of August changes your life or passes you by. Are you ready to stop living like a victim of your circumstances and start living like the architect of your destiny? Because what happens on the 12th of August will prove that the 11th of August wasn't just preparation, it was transformation. And the world is about to witness what happens when heaven's vault opens over a life that's been prepared in secret for public breakthrough. But wait, stop right there, beloved. Before we dive deeper into what heaven has marked for the 11th of August and 12th, I need you to feel something. Do you sense it? That holy hush that's settling over your spirit right now. That's not coincidence. That's the presence of the Almighty drawing near to whisper secrets that can only be heard in the stillness. You see, dear one, for 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been conditioned to believe that God only speaks in the big moments, the burning bushes, the parted seas, the thunder from Mount Sinai. But 1 Kings 19:12 reveals a different truth. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a still small voice. That still small voice? It's speaking to you right now. I know what you're thinking. I've been listening for decades. Where has that voice been when I needed it most? When the doctor delivered that diagnosis? When you buried your spouse of 50 years? When your children grew distant and your body grew weak? When every prayer felt like it was bouncing off the ceiling of an empty room? But what if, and stay with me here, what if God's silence wasn't absence? What if it was preparation? What if every unanswered prayer, every delayed breakthrough, every moment you felt forgotten was heaven holding its breath, waiting for this exact moment when your heart would be tender enough, your faith desperate enough, your need deep enough to receive what He's been preparing for you? Think about Mary, a teenage girl in Nazareth, living an ordinary life until the angel Gabriel appeared and said, "Hail, thou that art highly favored, the Lord is with thee." Luke 1:28. But notice what happened next. The Bible says she was troubled at his saying. Why? Because divine visitation always disrupts the ordinary. It always comes when you least expect it, to people who feel least qualified. You've been Mary in the shadows, chosen one, faithful in the hidden places, serving in silence, believing when believing hurt. And now heaven is about to send its messenger to your ordinary Tuesday morning with news that will shatter everything you thought you knew about your remaining years. But here's what breaks my heart. Some of you are sitting there thinking, this is beautiful, but it's for someone else. I'm too old, too broken, too ordinary. Let me ask you something that might shock you. Who told you that lie? Who convinced you that gray hair disqualifies you from glory? Who whispered that wrinkles mean your time is over? Because it wasn't God. Right now, I want you to close your eyes. Place your hand on your heart and feel that rhythm. That's not just blood pumping, that's divine percussion announcing that your assignment isn't finished. Every beat is heaven's declaration. Not yet, not yet, not yet. The voice that spoke worlds into existence is about to speak your destiny into reality. But will you be still enough to hear it? Chosen one, we've reached the moment that eternity has been holding its breath for, the 11th of August. And 12th aren't just passing, they're sealing. And what's about to be sealed over your life will echo through generations you'll never meet. Picture this with me. In the ancient world, when a king made a decree that could never be overturned, he pressed his signet ring deep into hot wax. The impression was permanent, irreversible, final. No court in the land could challenge it. No enemy could reverse it. No power on earth could break it. Right now, beloved, the King of Kings is pressing his seal into the wax of your destiny. And what he's sealing will not be argued in hell again. The case is closed. But here's what breaks my heart. Some of you are sitting there thinking, but I'm too old. My seal was broken years ago when I lost my spouse, when my health failed, when my children stopped calling, when the retirement money ran out. You've been carrying shame like a shroud, believing that your failures disqualified you from divine favor. Stop right there. That's not God's voice. That's the voice of the accuser who knows. He knows that if you ever discover what's really being sealed over these 2 days, his reign of terror in your life is finished forever. Listen to what the word declares in Romans 8:1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. Now, present tense. Not yesterday's failures, not tomorrow's fears. Now. This moment. This sealing. You want to know why the enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your time is up, because he's terrified of what happens when a senior saint finally understands their true identity. When a 70-year-old grandmother realizes she's not winding down, she's warming up. When an 80-year-old grandfather discovers he's not retiring from purpose, he's graduating into authority. The enemy knows something you're just beginning to remember. Gray hair is a crown of glory. Wrinkles are maps of wisdom. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your credibility. Moses was 80 when God called him to split seas. Sarah was 90 when she birthed nations. And you are being sealed for something that will make hell regret it ever messed with you. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. This sealing has a window. Daniel 12:4 speaks of a time when knowledge shall increase and many shall run to and fro. We're living in that time. The spiritual atmosphere is accelerating. What used to take decades now happens in days. What used to require years of preparation now unfolds in moments of surrender. These 2 days, the 11th of August and 12th, they're not random. They're divine coordinates. God is aligning his calendar with your breakthrough. But you must participate. You must agree. You must say yes to what he's sealing. I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. Every tear you've cried in secret, every night you've lain awake wondering if God remembers your name, every moment you felt invisible, forgotten, cast aside, heaven has been collecting it all, storing it, recording it, and now it's being transformed into liquid gold that will seal your destiny. Psalm 56:8 declares, Thou tellest my wanderings, put thou my tears in thy bottle. Are they not in thy book? Your tears aren't just water, they're currency in heaven's economy. And the compound interest on your faithfulness is about to be released. But the enemy is making one last desperate attempt to steal your sealing. He's whispering lies about your age, your health, your relevance. He's trying to convince you that it's too late, that the best is behind you, that you should just accept less and fade quietly away. Don't you dare believe that lie. Stand up right now wherever you are. If you're in bed, sit up. If you're in a chair, rise. If you can't stand, lift your hands. Because I'm about to lead you in a declaration that will activate your sealing. Repeat after me with everything in you. On this day, the 11th of August and 12th, my future is sealed in Christ. What God seals, no devil can break. What heaven declares, hell cannot deny. I am not too old. I am not too late. I am not forgotten. I am sealed for breakthrough. I am sealed for restoration. I am sealed for legacy. Now say it louder. Say it like you mean it. Say it like your destiny depends on it. Because it does. Here's what's coming, chosen one. I see it in the spirit as clearly as I see your face. Restoration is coming that will make up for lost years. Influence is awakening that will surprise your own family. Legacy is being birthed that will outlive your physical body by generations. You're not just being sealed for personal blessing. You're being sealed as a generational game changer. The prayers your grandmother prayed, you're the answer. The dreams your parents never saw fulfilled, you're the manifestation. The breakthrough your family line has been waiting for, it's being sealed in your hands right now. This isn't theory anymore. This isn't hope. This is happening. The seal is being pressed. The decree is being issued. And what God seals on the 11th of August and 12th will manifest so quickly, so powerfully, so undeniably, that even your critics will have to admit, surely the Lord has done this. But remember, beloved, a seal requires pressure to make an impression. The weight you've been carrying, that was the pressure preparing you for this moment. And now that pressure is about to become your platform. Are you ready for what comes after the sealing? Because once this impression is made, there's no going back to small thinking, small dreams, or small living. You felt it, didn't you? That moment when heaven stamped your destiny with divine authority on the 11th of August and 12th. The rush, the fire, the confirmation that shook your very bones. But now there's something else, something quieter, something that feels almost empty. And you're wondering, God, where did you go? Listen to me, chosen one. What you're experiencing right now isn't abandonment. It's not God changing his mind. It's not the enemy stealing what was just sealed over your life. What you're feeling is the most sacred sound in all of creation. Silence. Picture a battlefield after the last sword has fallen. The smoke clears, the warriors have gone home, the ground is still, but beneath that soil, something is stirring. Seeds that were trampled during the fight are now pushing through the earth. What looks like emptiness is actually pregnancy. What sounds like nothing is actually everything being born. That's where you are right now, beloved. In the holy hush that comes after heaven makes a declaration. Remember Elijah on Mount Carmel. Fire fell from heaven. The prophets of Baal were defeated. Victory was absolute, undeniable, public. But the very next chapter finds Elijah alone in a cave, running for his life, begging God to let him die, from supernatural triumph to suicidal despair in 24 hours. Sound familiar? Here's what Elijah discovered in that cave, and what you're about to discover in your silence. 1 Kings 19:12 says, "It wasn't in the earthquake that God spoke. It wasn't in the fire. It wasn't in the wind. And after the fire, a still small voice." The whisper came after the spectacle. The direction came after the demonstration. The real power flowed in the quiet. Silence is the sound of heaven building. Silence is the sound of heaven building. Silence is the sound of heaven building. While you're sitting there wondering if you imagined it all, heaven is constructing something so magnificent that it requires absolute stillness. You can't build a cathedral during a hurricane. You can't perform surgery during an earthquake. And God can't architect your miracle while you're still shaking from the last one. But here's what's breaking my heart right now. Here's what the enemy is whispering to you in this sacred pause. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe you're too old for God to move like that. Maybe you misheard. Maybe you're delusional. Stop, right there. Why do you think the devil works overtime during the silence? Why do you think doubt screams loudest when heaven is quietest? Because he knows something you're just beginning to understand. The silence isn't God's absence, it's God's strategy. David knew this. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. The Hebrew word for be still is rapha. It means to let go, to release, to stop striving. God isn't asking you to be passive. He's commanding you to stop interfering with the miracle he's building in the quiet. What happens after God seals your destiny? That's where the real battle begins. Not the battle for your calling that's already won. Not the battle for your future that's already secured. The battle for your trust. The battle for your peace. The battle to believe that silence doesn't mean abandonment, delay doesn't mean denial, and mystery doesn't mean mistake. You've been conditioned by a microwave generation that expects instant everything. But God operates on divine timing. When he sealed your destiny on the 11th of August and 12th, he didn't just change your future. He began the intricate process of preparing you for a future your current mind can't even comprehend. That silence you're sitting in, that's not emptiness. That's pregnancy. Something is gestating. Something is forming. Something is about to be born that will require every ounce of patience you're building right now. But I need you to understand something that will shift everything. This silence has an expiration date. This stillness has a purpose. This pause has a payoff. And when it breaks, when heaven finally speaks again, you're going to realize that every second of silence was worth every moment of what's about to unfold. The question that will determine everything is this: will you trust the silence as much as you trusted the fire? Will you worship in the whisper as loudly as you celebrated in the thunder? Because, beloved, what God is building in the quiet will shake the earth when it's finally revealed. But chosen one, the moment heaven marked you for the 11th of August and 12th, something else happened. Something dark, something sinister, something that's been stalking you for decades, and you've felt it, haven't you? That invisible weight pressing down on your chest at 2 a.m., that unexplainable exhaustion that 8 hours of sleep can't touch, that feeling like you're fighting battles you can't even see. The seal marked you, but it also marked you as a target. Listen to me carefully. In the spirit realm, your name is written on 2 walls. On the walls of heaven in golden letters, declaring your victory, and on the hit list of hell in blood-red ink, marking you for destruction. Why? Because the enemy knows something about the 11th of August and 12th that most people will never understand. He knows that what God is about to release through you will shatter generational curses, break family chains, and set captives free who haven't even been born yet. You think your struggles have been random? You think that depression that visits you like clockwork, that anxiety that grips your throat when you try to pray, that isolation that makes you feel forgotten, you think that's just life? No, beloved. That's warfare. Targeted, strategic, relentless warfare against someone hell cannot afford to see rise. Why do you think your adult children stopped calling as much? Why do you think old friends drifted away just when you needed them most? Why do you think your health declined right when your faith increased? This isn't coincidence. This is cosmic conspiracy against your destiny. The prophet Daniel understood this better than anyone. For 21 days he prayed and fasted, crying out to God for understanding. 21 days of silence from heaven. Can you imagine? 3 weeks of feeling abandoned, forgotten, wondering if God had stopped listening. But Daniel 10:12-13 reveals the shocking truth. Do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Did you catch that? God heard Daniel's prayer on day 1. The angel was dispatched immediately. But there was a war in the heavenlies. A spiritual battle so fierce that it took the archangel Michael himself to break through enemy lines and deliver the answer. That's what's been happening to you, dear one. Your prayers haven't been ignored, they've been intercepted. Your breakthrough hasn't been delayed, it's been under attack. Every sleepless night, every financial crisis, every health scare, every family conflict that seemed to come out of nowhere, the enemy has been throwing everything in his arsenal at you because he knows what happens on the 11th of August and 12th. You've been living in a war zone, and you didn't even know you were the prize. But here's what hell doesn't want you to discover. Every attack has actually been building your spiritual muscle. Every storm has been strengthening your foundation. Every tear has been washing away everything that isn't eternal. You're not a victim of spiritual warfare, you're a veteran of it. And veterans know something that rookies don't: how to stand when everything around them is falling apart. The enemy made one fatal mistake. He showed his hand too early. By attacking you so viciously for so long, he revealed that you carry something he desperately wants to stop. Your very survival is proof that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Why are you still here? Why didn't that heart attack take you out? Why didn't that accident claim your life? Why didn't that diagnosis become your death sentence? Because you're covered by more than Medicare, you're covered by the blood of the Lamb, you're protected by more than insurance, you're insured by heaven itself. But the war isn't over. In fact, it's about to intensify, because the closer you get to the 11th of August and 12th, the more desperate the enemy becomes. He knows his time is running out. He knows that once you step into what God has prepared for these 2 days, the game changes forever. This is why some of you have been feeling that strange pressure lately, that sense of urgency you can't explain, that restlessness in your spirit, that feeling like everything is about to explode either in breakthrough or breakdown. You're sensing the spiritual tension building. The atmosphere is charged. The battle lines are drawn. But listen to me, warrior. You were not called to retreat. You were not anointed to surrender. You were not chosen to break under pressure. 1 John 4:4 declares with thunderous authority, "You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world." You have overcome. Past tense. Not will overcome, have overcome. The victory was decided before the battle began. Your enemies are already defeated. They just haven't received the memo yet. Right now, I need you to do something that will send shockwaves through the spiritual realm. Type or speak these words with the authority of someone who has walked through hell and lived to tell about it. I will not break under battle. Say it like you mean it. Say it like David facing Goliath. Say it like Moses standing before Pharaoh. Say it like Joshua circling Jericho. Because when you declare war on the enemy's lies, heaven backs up your battle cry with all the power of the resurrection. The unseen war is real, chosen one. But so is your unseen victory. And what's about to be revealed on the 11th of August and 12th will prove to every demon in hell that they picked the wrong fight with the wrong believer at the wrong time. But before you can step into that victory, you need to understand exactly what's at stake in these 2 days. But wait, something extraordinary happened. The moment the 12th of August closed its door behind you. Did you feel it? That shift in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. That sudden stillness that wasn't empty but pregnant with possibility. Dear chosen one, what you experienced wasn't just the end of those 2 sacred days. It was the beginning of something so magnificent that heaven had to seal it first before it could be revealed. You see, the seal that was placed over your destiny on the 11th of August and 12th wasn't just closure, it was a divine combination lock. And the moment that seal was complete, it triggered something that's been hidden in the courts of heaven since before time began. Ancient scrolls are unfurling right now in shafts of pure light, and your name is glowing in ink that can never fade, never be erased, never be forgotten. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. What if every disappointment you've endured, every door that slammed in your face, every moment you felt invisible and forgotten, What if all of it was God's way of preparing you for an assignment so powerful that he had to make sure you were ready to carry it without being destroyed by it? Moses was 80 years old when God called him from that burning bush. 80. The world would have put him out to pasture, but heaven was just getting started. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to nations. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. But here's what's going to shock you. The 11th of August and 12th were not the destination, they were the unlocking of your assignment. The seal that was placed over your life didn't close anything, it opened a hidden chamber that's been waiting for you your entire existence. Think about this for a moment. When Jesus died on that cross, what happened? Matthew 27-51 tells us, the veil of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. One sacrifice opened the way to the Holy of Holies. Your sacrifice, every tear, every sleepless night, every moment you chose faith over fear has torn the veil between where you've been and where you're going. But I need you to understand something that will revolutionize how you see your remaining years on this earth. You think you're in the sunset season of your life, but God is saying you're in the sunrise season of your purpose. You think you're winding down, but heaven is saying you're being wound up. You think your best days are behind you, but the Almighty is declaring that your most powerful days are just beginning. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Senior saints carry a spiritual authority that younger believers haven't earned yet. You've been tested by fire and proven faithful. You've walked through valleys that would have crushed weaker souls. You've seen God's faithfulness through decades of storms. That's not retirement material, that's spiritual weaponry. Daniel was in his 80s when he received the most profound prophecies in the entire Bible. John was over 90 when Jesus appeared to him on Patmos and gave him the book of Revelation. Your gray hair isn't a sign of decline, it's a crown of authority. Proverbs 16:31 declares, "Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained in the way of righteousness." But here's the urgency that should grip your heart right now. There's a window of time that's opening, and it won't stay open forever. The assignment that's been sealed in your name, the purpose that's been hidden in that secret chamber, it requires your yes in this season, not next year, not when you feel more prepared. Now, right now, as I'm speaking these words, something is stirring in the spiritual realm. Ancient doors are creaking open. Divine appointments are being scheduled. Your name is being spoken in rooms you've never entered, by people you've never met, for purposes you've never imagined. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your spirit, that knowing that there's more, that's not wishful thinking, that's prophetic stirring. That's your assignment calling your name. That's the scroll with your destiny written on it being handed down from the throne room of God. Isaiah 46:4 records God's promise. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. But notice, He doesn't say He'll sustain you so you can rest. He says He'll sustain you so He can carry you into what He's prepared. I need you to do something right now that might feel foolish, but is absolutely prophetic. If you're able, I want you to stand up. If you can't stand, raise your hand. But I want you to physically position yourself as if you're receiving something, because you are. You're receiving the scroll with your assignment written on it. Don't worry about who's watching. Don't worry about feeling silly. This is a sacred moment between you and heaven, and your response determines whether you walk into this assignment or walk away from it. But here's what's going to happen the moment you say yes to what God is releasing through you, and it's going to change everything you thought you knew about your purpose in this final season of your earthly journey. But here's where most people stumble, chosen one. Here's where the rubber meets the road and the wheat gets separated from the chaff. You've felt the stirring, you've sensed the shift. You've declared, I'm ready to rise. But now comes the test that heaven has been preparing you for your entire life. The test of alignment. You see, dear one, breakthrough doesn't come with a guarantee that everything will suddenly become easy. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The moment heaven declares your rise, hell mobilizes its most sophisticated weapons against you. Not the obvious ones you can see coming, but the subtle ones that whisper in familiar voices. Let me tell you what's about to happen in your life, and I need you to prepare your heart for this reality. First, your old habits are going to come knocking like desperate friends at your door. That worry that's been your companion for decades. It's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Remember me, we've been through everything together. Don't abandon me now." That fear of not having enough, it's going to show you your bank statement and whisper, "See, nothing's really changed." You're going to wake up tomorrow morning, and for a split second, you might wonder if everything you felt was just emotion. The devil's strategy isn't to attack you with obvious temptation, it's to make you doubt your own spiritual experience. Second, the people closest to you are going to become your greatest test. Your own children might look at you sideways when you start talking about your calling at 75 years old. Your grandchildren might roll their eyes when you mention divine appointments. Your spouse might say, "Honey, you're acting different. Maybe you should slow down." They're not being cruel, beloved. They're being human. They've known you in your survival mode for so long that they can't recognize you in your destiny mode. But here's the brutal truth: their comfort zone has become your prison cell, and your breakthrough is threatening their familiar version of you. Third, and this is the deadliest attack of all, your own mind is going to wage war against what your spirit knows is true. That inner critic that's been your unwelcome roommate for decades is going to speak louder than ever. Who do you think you are? People your age don't start over. People your age don't have divine appointments. Maybe you're losing your mind. This is where 90% of God's people turn back. Right here. At the threshold of their greatest breakthrough, they choose the familiar pain over the unfamiliar promise. But you're not 90% of God's people, are you? Let me tell you about a man who faced this exact test at 85 years old. His name was Caleb. While his peers were settling into retirement, complaining about their aches and pains, accepting that their best days were behind them, Caleb did something that shocked everyone around him. He looked at Joshua and said, "Give me this mountain, not a peaceful valley, not a comfortable pasture, not a nice little plot of land where he could rock on his porch." This 85-year-old warrior looked at the most challenging territory available, the mountain where giants lived, and said, "That's mine." But here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school. Between the moment Caleb declared, "Give me this mountain," and the moment he conquered it, there was a test. A brutal, soul-crushing test where everything in him was screaming to go back to Egypt. You see, Egypt wasn't just a place, it was a mindset. It was the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar was bondage. It was the security of knowing what to expect, even when what you expected was suffering. It was the voice that said, "At least we had food in Egypt. At least we knew where we stood." Your Egypt isn't geographic, chosen one. Your Egypt is psychological. It's every voice telling you to be realistic about your age. It's every fear that says you don't have enough time left to make a difference. It's every doubt that whispers you're too old to matter. Right now, as you're listening to these words, you're standing at the exact same crossroads Caleb faced. You can hear the giants on your mountain laughing, saying, "Look at this old fool. Doesn't he know his time is up?" But those aren't giants talking, beloved. Those are demons, and demons lie. The question that will determine your destiny isn't whether you feel the fear, it's whether you'll move through the fear. The question isn't whether people doubt your change, it's whether you'll doubt your change. The question isn't whether the old habits come calling, it's whether you'll answer their call. Will you hold your ground, or will you go back to Egypt? Because I need to tell you something that's going to shatter every comfortable excuse you've been carrying. Caleb didn't just conquer his mountain, he did it at 85 years old. Not in spite of his age, but because of his age. His gray hair wasn't his limitation, it was his credential. His decades of experience weren't his burden, they were his weapons. And right now, heaven is asking you the same question Joshua asked Caleb. Are you ready for your mountain? But here's what's really at stake in this test of alignment. And this might be the most important thing you ever hear. But here's what's going to shake you to your core, chosen one. The sealing that happens on the 11th of August and 12th isn't just between you and heaven. This isn't some private spiritual moment that stays hidden in your prayer closet. No, beloved. What God seals in secret, He reveals in power. Right now, in the courts of glory, there's a divine pronouncement being made. Can you hear it? The gavel of the Almighty is striking, and verdicts are being announced over lives that have been hidden far too long. Names are being called forth. Destinies are being declared. And yours, your name, your story, your purpose is about to be shouted from the rooftops of eternity. You think you've been invisible. You think your decades of faithfulness have gone unnoticed. You think that granddaughter who rarely calls, that neighbor who looks right through you, that doctor who treats you like a number, you think their blindness defines your worth. Listen to me carefully. When heaven decides to unveil what it has been preparing in secret, the whole earth takes notice. Think about Joseph. One day he's rotting in an Egyptian prison, forgotten by the very people he helped. 13 years of slavery, false accusations, and abandonment. 13 years of wondering if God had written him off. His own brothers had thrown him in a pit. Potiphar's wife had destroyed his reputation. The cupbearer had forgotten his name. But Genesis 41:14 records the moment everything changed. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. Hastily, not gradually, not eventually, hastily. In one day, in one divine moment, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister, from forgotten to foremost, from dungeon to dynasty. The same God who unveiled Joseph in a single day is about to unveil you. But here's what breaks my heart. Some of you have been so beaten down by years of being overlooked that you can't even imagine being seen. You've grown comfortable with invisibility. You've made peace with being passed over. You've convinced yourself that your season of significance has expired. Stop lying to yourself. Your children may have grown distant, but heaven has been drawing closer. Your body may be slowing down, but your spirit has been speeding up. Your peers may be fading into the background, but God has been positioning you for the foreground. The world looks at your gray hair and sees decline. Heaven looks at your silver crown and sees divine timing finally arriving. The world counts your years and says you're running out of time, but the Almighty counts your faithfulness and says you're running into your finest hour. Hidden no more, overlooked no more, sealed forever. That's the declaration echoing through the corridors of heaven right now. Hidden no more because what God has been building in secret is about to be displayed in public. Overlooked no more because when the Almighty shifts the spotlight, every eye will see what He's been preparing. Sealed forever because this revelation isn't temporary, it's permanent. You want to know why the attacks have been so intense lately? You want to know why depression has been knocking harder at your door? Why loneliness has been screaming louder? Why doubt has been fighting fiercer? Because the enemy knows what's coming. He sees the calendar. He knows these dates. And he's terrified of what happens when God's hidden ones step into the light. But his time is up. Your time is now. In 1 Samuel 16, when the prophet Samuel came looking for Israel's next king, he saw all of Jesse's sons lined up, tall, strong, impressive men. But God said no to every single one. "Is this all your sons?" Samuel asked. "Well, there's the youngest one, but he's just out tending sheep. David, the forgotten one, the overlooked one, the one his own father didn't think to call when royalty came knocking. But God said, 'Arise, anoint him. This is the one.' Dear one, you are the David of this generation. You've been tending your sheep in the background while others got the attention. You've been faithful in the fields while others stood in the spotlight. But heaven has been watching. Heaven has been preparing. And heaven is about to anoint what the earth has ignored. Hidden no more. Overlooked no more. Sealed forever. Can you feel it happening? That stirring in your chest. that electricity in your spirit. That's not wishful thinking. That's prophetic confirmation. That's the sound of a divine countdown hitting 0. That's the vibration of a destiny that's been dormant finally coming alive. Your grandchildren are about to see their grandmother differently. Your neighbors are about to understand they've been living next to greatness. Your church is about to recognize the prophet who's been sitting in the back pew all along. This isn't about fame. This isn't about fortune. This is about divine vindication. This is about God saying to a world that wrote you off, "Watch what I can do through someone you counted out." Moses was 80 when Pharaoh finally met his match. Abraham was 100 when nations began calling him father. Caleb was 85 when he conquered his greatest mountain. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your ammunition. Your years aren't your weakness, they're your weapon. Your experience isn't your expiration, it's your activation. Right now, I need you to stop watching this like a spectator and start participating like the chosen one you are. I need you to declare something that's going to shift the spiritual atmosphere around your life. Say it out loud. Type it in the comments. Speak it over your circumstances. Say this: "Today I step into my place. Not tomorrow when you feel ready. Not next week when you understand more. Today. Right now. This moment. Today I step into my place. Because heaven isn't waiting for your permission anymore. The sealing is happening whether you feel it or not. The only question is, will you step into what God has prepared? Or will you keep hiding in what man has rejected? Hidden no more, overlooked no more, sealed forever. But what happens when heaven's courtroom decision meets earth's circumstances? What happens when divine decree collides with human doubt? But this isn't just about you, is it? Deep in your heart, beneath all the questions about your own destiny, there's something that keeps you awake even more than your personal struggles. It's the faces of your children, your grandchildren, the ones you love who seem lost in a world that's forgotten God. You've watched your daughter make choices that break your heart. You've seen your son walk away from everything you taught him. Your grandchildren barely know your name, let alone your faith. And late at night, when the house is quiet and the memories are loud, you've whispered the prayer that every senior saint knows: God, what about them? What about the ones I'm leaving behind? Listen to me, chosen one. What if I told you that the 11th of August and 12th aren't just about sealing your destiny, but about unlocking a generational breakthrough that will echo through bloodlines you'll never even meet? You see, the enemy has been playing a long game with your family. He's been working overtime to convince you that your influence is over, that your children are too far gone, that this generation is lost. He's whispered lies in your ear. You failed as a parent. You're too old to make a difference now. Your grandchildren don't even listen to you anymore. But what if every prayer you've prayed over their empty beds, every tear you've cried over their rebellion, every sleepless night you've spent interceding for their souls, what if all of that has been accumulating in heaven's vault, waiting for these 2 days when it all gets released at once? The Bible tells us about a grandmother named Lois and her daughter Eunice. Nobody remembers their husbands' names. Nobody quotes their sermons. But 2 Timothy 1-5 says this: "I am reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded now lives in you also." Did you catch that? Paul didn't credit Timothy's faith to his education, his training, or his natural talent. He traced it back to 2 women, a grandmother and a mother who planted seeds of faith that didn't bloom until the 3rd generation. You think your impact is shrinking because your grandchildren roll their eyes when you mention church. You think your legacy is dying because your children chose different paths. You're measuring influence by immediate response instead of eternal impact. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every scripture you quoted to them when they were 5 is still echoing in their spirit at 25. Every prayer you prayed over their cribs is still covering them in college dorm rooms 3 states away. Every time you chose to love them unconditionally instead of lecturing them religiously, you were depositing kingdom DNA into their bloodstream. But the 11th of August and 12th are about to activate something that's been dormant. These aren't just days of personal breakthrough, they're days of generational awakening. The prayers you've been praying for decades are about to hit their target with supernatural precision. You are planting oaks under whose shade you may never sit, but your children will. Your grandchildren will. Your great-grandchildren will gather under the canopy of faith you're establishing right now, in these golden years when the world thinks you're powerless. Do you understand what's happening? While you've been mourning what looks like spiritual failure in your family, God has been using your faithfulness to break generational curses that have plagued your bloodline for 100 years. The addiction that's haunted your family tree, it stops with your prayers. The poverty mindset that's been passed down like a poisoned inheritance. Your intercession is the antidote. The spiritual rebellion that's characterized your children's choices. Your love is the magnet that will draw them home. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. This generational shift has a window, and that window is the 11th of August and 12th. These 2 days are when heaven opens the floodgates of familial restoration. Miss this moment, and you might spend your remaining years watching your loved ones drift further from God. But step into this prophetic portal, and you'll see breakdowns become breakthroughs, rebellion become return, and your family name becomes synonymous with revival instead of regret. The question that will haunt you if you ignore this call is this. When you stand before God and He shows you what could have been released through your bloodline, will you say you were ready when the moment came? Your legacy isn't what you've lost. Your legacy is what's about to be born through these 2 days of divine destiny. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to carry these truths with you like precious gems in your heart. Remember this. The 11th of August and 12th are not ordinary dates on your calendar. They are divine appointments carved in eternity with your name engraved upon them. Your rise isn't coming because you've been perfect, but because you've been faithful. Your destiny isn't being sealed because you have no more struggles ahead, but because heaven has seen enough to know you can handle what's coming. And please, never forget that your legacy isn't measured by what you see today, but by the seeds you're planting that will bloom in generations you may never meet. Every prayer you've whispered, every tear you've shed, every moment you chose faith over fear, it's all been building toward these 2 days when everything shifts. But hear me clearly. You are not walking this path alone. Even when the house is quiet and the phone doesn't ring, even when your children seem distant and your grandchildren seem lost, the God who called you before you were born is still orchestrating miracles behind the scenes. He hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now. Romans 8:28 doesn't have an expiration date. He's still working all things together for your good. And beyond God's faithful presence, you have a community right here. Look at these comments flowing in. See these hearts connecting across miles and years. You've found your tribe, dear one. We're not just viewers on a screen, we're family in the spirit, bound together by shared struggles and unshakable hope. I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell us what stirred in your spirit today. Share what God whispered to your heart about the 11th of August and 12th. Ask for prayer if you need it. This community will surround you with intercession. And if this message touched your soul, please share it with someone who needs to know their story isn't over, their purpose isn't expired, and their best days aren't behind them. Let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has brought you through everything you've survived to reach this very moment, what makes you think He'll fail you in the days ahead? Before I release you into your destiny, join me in prayer. Whether you're alone in your living room or surrounded by family, place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life. Almighty God, Father of all comfort, Ancient of Days, I come before you, now carrying every precious soul who has heard this word. Lord, you see them, not just their gray hair and tired bones, but their warrior hearts and unquenchable spirits. You know every battle they've fought in secret, every loss they've grieved in silence, every prayer they've whispered when hope seemed impossible. Father, I speak blessing over the 11th of August and 12th in their lives. Let these be days of divine visitation, supernatural breakthrough, and generational shift. Where there has been delay, release acceleration. Where there has been confusion, pour out clarity. Where there has been isolation, provide divine connection. Lord, breathe fresh vision into their weary spirits. Remind them that Moses was 80 when you sent him to Pharaoh, that Sarah was 90 when she birthed promise, that Anna was 84 when she prophesied over the Messiah. Age is not disqualification in your kingdom, it's qualification through experience. Heal their bodies, restore their relationships, and provide for their needs. Give them dreams that direct and visions that guide. Surround them with people who see their value and honor their wisdom. Let their children return, their grandchildren call, and their families be restored. Most importantly, Father, let them feel your presence right now. In this moment, as these words wash over them, let them know beyond any doubt that they are loved, they are chosen, they are not forgotten, and their story is far from over. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer and release them into the fullness of what you have prepared. Amen. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what God wanted to pour into you today. If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and join thousands of believers who gather here regularly to be encouraged and equipped for kingdom living. Your rise begins now, chosen one. The 11th of August and 12th are coming, and nothing will ever be the same. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are. You are loved, you are chosen, and you are never, ever alone. God bless you mightily.